This is being said in a documentary filled with many interviews called The Lost Century on Amazon. If somebody says, come on now, this is a such and such, why is Jeff Bezos allowing this to be on his Amazon? Why are they letting that happen? But watch this. That wasn't only invention he had. He had another device that ran on nothing. Yes, you know how much money you can make off of nothing? You can't say, I'll sell you nothing for $5 a gallon. What do you mean? There's no profit margin on nothing, right? He built a device that broke the second law of thermodynamics. Do you and I even know what that means? Broke the second law of thermodynamics. Whatever it is, he was able to figure it out to run on nothing. You can't monetize when you run on nothing, right? Stanley Meyer had a donut-shaped electromagnetic device in his garage, slapped with a national security order due to its groundbreaking nature. Paranoid from past experiences of having patents seized, Meyer deliberately falsified the voltage and frequency numbers in his patent to prevent theft or classification. Skeptics argue that Meyer's technology violated thermodynamics law, specifically
Did somebody say patents? Hey, look it. I am this. Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. I am your host, Dave, an almost 10-year intellectual property attorney dealing with patents, trademarks, copyrights, and everything in between. This is actually an interesting video, man. Hey, look it. When y'all say something about patents, my ears start to perk up. I was sent this video by Patrick Bet-David, and shout out to Patrick Bet-David. I love his content. I definitely think he's a game changer. Definitely, he's one of my mentors that I look up to, even though we have never spoken, and hope to one day speak to him and have a conversation with him. Now, up until this point, he's talking about, and we're going to continue to do this review video, but he's talking about Stanley Meyer, who kind of developed the engine that runs off water, and it was a number of issues with the government maybe coming in trying to take his patent or take his idea, something along those lines. And he had the second invention, which PBD talks about, where he had, again, a device that runs off nothing, which is, I guess, interesting to me in terms of how do you run off nothing. And again, he was still a kind of paranoid based off of, I guess, the previous inventions that he had that the government, were taken from him, and kind of based on the secrecy order, which he PBD gets off into later, where the government can take your ideals. Let me be the first to say, as a patent attorney, a patent doesn't give you the right to do anything. A patent allows you to exclude others from doing it. So you'll hear me say this multiple times in this video. To the extent that you want to keep something a secret, you probably should not get a patent on it. Because again, he talks about falsifying numbers and things like that. Again, part of getting a patent in exchange for, so when you get a patent with the U.S. government, in this case, the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office, you have to exchange the secret sauce. You have to give up the secret sauce in exchange for a 20-year monopoly on your ideal. That's pretty much the exchange between you as an inventor, as a patent owner, and the U.S. government. You have to give up the secret sauce in exchange for a monopoly, a 20-year monopoly by way of a patent on your ideal. Now, when he talks about this guy maybe falsifying information, look, I'll be the first to tell you, unfortunately, the government is not the most trusted source in the world. We know that they kind of do some backdoor dealings. They can be a little shady at times. So I'm not saying that the government is by any means not to blame, or they don't do some shady stuff, or obviously get people kind of whacked or things of that sort. But for this guy, and for you patent owners, or to be patent owners one day, because I want everybody to protect their IP, protect their patents, trademarks, whatever the case may be, in exchange for getting a patent by the U.S. government, you have to give up the secret sauce. So when you talk about maybe falsifying numbers, falsifying data, it's like, okay, why even file a patent at that point? Because again, you have to give up the secret sauce. And just because you file a patent, that doesn't mean that, and we'll get off into that later, that doesn't mean that your invention works the way you think it works. A lot of times, and this happens all the time, where people will be doing R&D, they'll file a patent on their application, and I guess as they're continuing to protect their particular invention or what they're doing R&D on, and as they kind of go through the R&D process, they'll find out, okay, this thing doesn't work as well as I thought, so they abandon ship and go to something else, even though they still have a patent on it, because it was new and non-obvious compared to what things was doing. So just because something gets a patent, that doesn't mean that it's the most efficient way, the most effective way to do something. It just means that it's new and non-obvious. So I guess just keep in mind as we kind of go through this review video. But again, if you're going to get a patent, you have to disclose a secret sauce. And to the extent, like he said, that this Stanley Meyer guy kind of was falsifying numbers and things like that. Just like, okay, why even file a patent on the thing? Just keep it for yourself. Because again, when you file, like I said before, when you file a patent, that doesn't give you the right to do anything. You can sell something without getting a patent. A patent is an exclusionary right. It allows you to stop others from doing it, stop others from making it or using it or selling it. And with regard to this Stanley Meyer guy specifically, if he was like kind of paranoid that the U.S. government is going to take his ideal or whatever the case may be, why not just practice your invention, create it on your own, and then you can kind of still put it out? Just because you have a patent on something, I mean, just because you don't have a patent on something, that doesn't mean that you can't sell it. You can sell anything that you want to. Obviously, whether or not you're infringing somebody else's patent is a separate a game or analysis that you have to conduct. But a patent allows you to stop others from doing it. It doesn't allow you to do anything. So for this Stanley Meyer guy, it's like, okay, why falsify anything? At that point, just do it on your own, put it out, manufacture it, continue to do R&D, manufacture it and put it out, and you don't have to worry about the government. Now, the government may still come along, and you may have some other issues with them. But as far as trying to get this patent on something, like why try to get a patent on something about like falsified data? And it just doesn't, I guess, make sense for me as a patent attorney. But let's continue on with the video and see what PBD says about I guess this topic.
The second law of thermodynamics, energy transfers inefficiencies, because Meyer's engine created energy without waste. Now watch this. I'm going to read this to you. It's going to sound very weird, but hang tight. And then I'm going to validate it with a quote that was given by Tesla back in the days. Zero energy devices are said not to create energy, but to channel existing, keyword, omnipresent energy. Challenging conventional views on energy conservation is what we're talking about with Stanley. And you know what Nikola Tesla said? If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. What the hell happened to the Stanley guy? Was he up to something big? And why did he disappear all of a sudden? It's a good question to ask. So now that's 1990. How far back can we go where somebody thought of this? In 1898, this man named Stubblefield was issued the U.S. patent of $600,457 for something called the Earth battery. Earth battery. What is an earth battery? It's an electronic coil of iron, insulated copper wire that was immersed in liquid or buried in the ground. Stubblefield claimed that combined with normal battery operation, his device also drew additional power from the earth. However, it did successfully serve as both a power source and a ground terminal for wireless telephones. This is getting crazier.
So again, just to, I guess, as he's get off into the earth battery, and with the Stubblefield guy, the earth battery essentially allows you to power your say, for example, your electronics, essentially using the earth at that point. So you're not spending money on electricity from, say, whoever your utility provider is in your local, your municipality or whatever the case may be. You don't have to go through them because you're essentially getting power from the earth. Definitely interesting concept. Again, you have to know these things as far as just because you patent something, again, that doesn't mean that it's it works as well as you think it does. Now, again, a lot of times, people, Nikola Tesla, man, he was a brilliant guy. I run into, as a patent attorney, patents that get cited against kind of new stuff that I'm doing here in the 20th to a 21st century. And the examiners at the patent office, they cite stuff from Nikola Tesla that he did back in the 1900s. And what that means to me is that this guy was ahead of his time. He was thinking, again, it was stuff that I do a lot of work in the electric vehicle space, and it was stuff that he was thinking about electric vehicles back in the 1900s. But again, you were just coming around with the gas-powered vehicle, and I do agree with PBD in that I don't think the U.S. was ready for kind of switch to electric vehicles because they just had everything. With the gas vehicle was just kind of really coming into its own with Henry Ford and everybody else who had the gas-powered vehicle, and just kind of everything that was set up when you were talking about the oil with who was it, your boy Rockefeller, and everything that was kind of set up around the gas-powered vehicle. So just to try to have this market disruptor of an electric vehicle, it probably wasn't going to be well received in society. Now, whether or not the U.S. government kind of maybe cared or whatnot, I'm not sure that they're trying to kind of take, obviously, Nikola Tesla out because he had this electric vehicle. It was just one of those things where you're not going to get funding. This is something that is not ready to be picked up. Obviously, in 2024, in the 21st century, things are kind of trending towards electric vehicles, but back in the 1900s, things were just not kind of trending towards electric vehicles. So what does that mean? That just means that you weren't going to get funding for your research and development regarding the electric vehicle, even though you had all these cool ideals and ideals that seem to be relevant, obviously for today's day and age, it just wasn't as applicable back then, and society wasn't ready to accept that. And again, a lot of this stuff with the patent office and just society in general and patents and ideas and technologies, you can have a great technology, a great product, but it can just be in the wrong time. If society is not ready to adopt or switch over or transition to your product for one reason or another, then you're probably not going to be successful. I don't think that means that the government is going to try to take you out as a result of that. It just means that society is not ready and the infrastructure is not set up for that. So you're not going to get funding, or you're not just going to get buy-in from the powers to be as a result of that. Now, whether or not the government is trying to take you out because you're ahead of your time, I don't necessarily buy into that. But again, I already know, I'll be the first to tell you that the U.S. government is not the most trusted source, and I can see them doing some shady stuff. But because you had what did he call it? Just because you had the earth battery, or maybe a water powered engine from back in the day, that okay, the government and the powers to be in a business can't make many money off of it, does that mean that somebody's going to try to take you out or poison you? Maybe, but I guess maybe not. Again, it's just, you're probably not going to get R&D. People don't want to invest in it because, again, this guy could have did it on his own. He could have manufactured it. Again, he needs money, so powers to be probably was not going to give him money. But does that mean that somebody's going to try to take him out or try to hide what he's doing? I'm not sure if I buy that as a patent attorney, but let's continue on and see what your boy PBD has to say.
Crazier, right? Like, you may be watching this right now saying, I'm going to come up with this idea. There's no money in this idea. You get what I'm saying? Like, there is no money. It's just, you're solving a massive problem. You're going to create so many enemies. The oil and gas industry employs millions of people. This isn't just about the people that are making the money, but watch this one here. Nikola Tesla's Pierce Aero electric car from 1921 running on pure etheric electricity. What does that mean? This is a self-recharging car. It does not run on batteries, oil, and gas. Again, recharging. How do you keep making money if somebody sells a battery that's recharging? You shave and you use your razor. It gets bad. Boom. You go to whatever store, you buy another one. Okay. You put batteries in something, you change, you go back, right? You're constantly having to go back to buy it. There is more money being made. If it's self-recharging car, what do I need to go buy? Because it's already recharging itself. There's no profit in it. And by the way, what's wild is many of these stories were also in the paper. Here's one from August 28th, 1921, in the Phoenix paper. Electricity taken from air drives automobile. Taken from air drives automobile. And by the way, I got a bunch of these stories, but I want to tell you with Tesla. Let's go through what happened with Tesla. So check this out. And
before we get to Tesla, I just want to re-emphasize, just because somebody files a patent on something, that does not mean that this thing is in its final form, or this thing works the way the headline say it works. So when you think of a headline that says, okay, this battery runs off water, or this battery runs off air, yeah, that's a good headline, but that doesn't necessarily mean, and again, the inventor was kind of doing research and development to try to kind of fine tune his invention or his ideal, but it may have a number of inefficiencies to the point where it's not in its final form. Because do you think, and we'll get off into the secrecy order a little later where PBD goes over that, and again, it is a secrecy order, and I kind of tell you how it's applied and used in today's time, but do you think that the government, if they found out how to run an engine off water or off air, that all these military applications, them going overseas and doing all this stuff at war, that they would not implement this stuff at war to get a leg up on the competitor, on the enemy? You better believe that the government, to the extent that they had some type of a technology that can help them out at war, such as a vehicle that drives off water, or a vehicle drives off air, to the point where you don't have to refuel, that they wouldn't implement this thing or deploy this thing at war to give them a leg up on their competitors. You're crazy. You have to leave me your thoughts in the comments on whether or not you think that if the U.S. had some type of tank that runs off air or water, that they wouldn't deploy this thing and just smash every enemy that they're at war with. No, again, these headlines are great. Engine that runs off air, engine that runs off water. But that doesn't mean, just because somebody had a patent on it because it was different than what was out there, that doesn't mean that it's an actual working model. Again, the USPTO doesn't require your product to be the most efficient. It has to just be new and non-obvious. It doesn't have to be the most efficient thing. It doesn't have to be the most effective thing. Heck, really, you can argue that it doesn't even have to work, but as long as it's new or and non-obvious, you can most likely get a patent on things. So these people may have got a patent on something, that a concept or ideal or a product that was in theory different, but it may not was in its final form to the point that it was most as effective, as efficient, and kind of as fine-tuned as the headlines may indicate. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Let's see what he says, because I definitely want to get to what he's talking about the secrecy order. But Nikola Tesla, what Nikola Tesla was, man, he was a brilliant guy. So let's see what he talked about with Tesla.
1900, Nikola Tesla convinced JP Morgan to fund a global wireless communication system, later expanding the project to include wireless power transmission after demonstrating the technology. So now JP Morgan's like, well, a great idea. What could this turn into?
So again, and I'm not going to blow it up on myself, but again, demonstrating the technology is different from mass producing a technology, or kind of really producing a technology for like countries or municipalities or states, or just kind of a mass group of people. So just kind of keep that in mind. It seems like it's obvious to me as a patent attorney, but maybe it's not as obvious. Something you can demonstrate something in a lab. That doesn't mean that it'll work at scale. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Then on July 10th, 1932, this is 32 years later, Tesla announced the development of a principle to harness cosmic rays for power generation. He described a process where cosmic rays ionize the air. Again, going back to the Phoenix guy talking about air. This is in 1921. This is in 1932. So cosmic ray ionizes the air, releasing without the need for storing energy, solar, which we have a lot of solar right now that we need to replace every 30 years, but this is saying no wind, no solar. So now watch this. I'm about to read this next part to you, but in 1900, he convinces JP Morgan, right? 1932, he announces the development of this cosmic harness ray for power generation. Watch this. The new energy source, described as everywhere present in unlimited quantities, could potentially, ready for the powerful word that scared the crap out of everybody, eliminate the need for conventional fuel, such as what? Coal, oil, or gas. Boom. The moment he said this, it scared the hell out of everybody. So now Tesla requested more funding for this expansion, but now
again, he requested more funding because it was not in his final form. He had this ideal that he wanted to go down his rabbit hole. Maybe the oil gas industry was scared and therefore kind of maybe tried to work their magic to get it shut down. But it was also a possibility that this thing was never going to work in the beginning, because it was just an ideal and was a hunch that he was trying to kind of really kind of go through and kind of try to fine tune and see if it'll work. So yeah, let's go.
P. Morgan withdrew support, citing a breach of contract possibly influenced by his investment in industries threatened by Tesla innovations, GE, AT&T, copper mines. Of course, he's going to sit there and protect his investment, saying, hey, what you're doing, you're going to put my guys out of business. I'm not interested. Allegedly, that's what happened here. Did I just use the word allegedly? I think if you haven't ordered, the JP Morgan Chase say, no, we're not going to give you more funding. But what they also did is discourage other investors, isolating Tesla financially. So this led to Tesla having significant debt, which eventually led to the foreclosure and eventual demolition of the Wardenclyffe Tower, which is where he was doing all his testing. Obviously, his vision of free, unlimited energy had a lot of enemies, such as Morgans, Rockefellers, Vanderbilts, who controlled American energy production and distribution. That's a problem. And by the way, according to this documentary,
and as an aside, man, Tesla, brilliant guy, unfortunately died broke. Every year I watch The Man Who Built America. Man, what Tesla did was very unfortunate with Westinghouse, where he had the patent on the AC current. He ripped it up to try to get that, I guess, company and thing off the ground, and that cost him millions, some may say billions of dollars. Go check out The Man Who Built America. I watch it every year as I kind of get in that mindset of thinking big. It's on Amazon. Again, I always look forward to that part, because he literally ripped up his patent, where Westinghouse had to provide him essentially a royalty off his patents. Again, the value of a patent on his AC current, but he ripped it up because they couldn't afford, as opposed to let's renegotiate and lower it to a time period until we get off the ground, and then we can bump back up the royalty. But he literally ripped it up so that they could continue on with the project. And unfortunately, he died broke at that point in time. Again, it was said that he could have made millions, if not billions, off that AC current alone that he created, that he invented, that he had a patent on. But unfortunately he died broke as a result. So that's an aside, but let's continue to go.
The last century. Ready for
You're
this?
almost there.
Kind of weird here. Watch this. Upon his death, many of his documents disappeared, and documents showed that the Department of Defense ordered Tesla's belongings to be turned over to them after his death. Kind of weird. I'm going to go through the rest of these guys very quick. This is a guy named Charles Pogge in the 30s. He figured out a way to create a machine. Ready for this? Breen Motor Company tested a carburetor on a Ford V8 coupe in 1936, achieving 26.2 miles on 1 pint of gasoline. Approximately.
I don't care about that. I want to get to the
With
secret
Ford.
stuff.
Ford knew about this, and even after Ford and Canadian Automotive Magazine reported around 200 to 218 miles per gallon, excitement from the test resulted to a drop in oil company stock prices on the Toronto Exchange. But following the media buzz, Pogge's workshop was burglarized and all related materials were stolen. Eventually, he ceased further development in the discussion of carburetor, later taking a high-paying managerial position where? At an oil company. Next guy, Thomas Moray, 1940. 0 point field. His lab was attacked. He faced multiple impoverished. A bit weird. You may even pause the video to want to Google this to say this can't be right. In 1951, the U.S. enacted the Invention Secrecy Act. What is that? Allows the government to legally classify and keep certain inventions secret if deemed a threat to national economy or security. What could be a threat to national economy? If you're able to figure something out that's 220 miles per gallon, you think it affects the oil industry a little bit? Maybe. Inventions under a secrecy order cannot be discussed, exported, or sold outside of military channels. Violations of secrecy order can result in imprisonment for the inventor. Over 6,000 patents today are kept by the U.S. government in secret. They didn't allow the people to go out there and sell it. I wonder what those 6,000 patents are. A lot of people want to be like, when you become a president, I want to go to Area 51. A lot of us capitalists want to find out what these 6,000 patents are. If you want to go a little bit deeper, let me give it to you. In 1971, the list indicated that patents for solar photovoltaic generators were subject to review and possible restrictions if they were more than 20% efficient, meaning energy conversion systems were likewise subject to review and possible restriction if they offered conversion efficiencies in excess of 70 to 80%. What does that really mean? That means if we can save your electricity by over 70 to 80%, pump the brakes. 20%, we're okay with that. 70, 80, little too much. We can't save people that much money because if we do that, a couple other industries may be out of business. That's exactly what it means. I'll do a couple of these and we'll wrap up because
And again, I would refute that because you can literally get solar panels on your house, and you're talking about cutting your energy costs. The energy is free at that point. So I would say free is more than 70, 80%. It's more like 100%. So again, that's why I'm kind of not buying it. Again, I know the U.S. government is not necessarily to be trusted. I know they have done some shady stuff and they're capable of doing some shady stuff. And I would not be surprised if they have done some shady stuff. However, again, they're talking about if it kind of saves over 20% of energy, that it needs to be, hey, you need to pump the brakes on it. But again, you can buy solar panels for your house. And outside of that, they actually give you rebates and credits for doing that. And then when you get the solar panels on your house, you're pretty much not even paying a utility bill at that point because you're getting all your energy from the sun, which again, you're cutting down on your utility costs, your energy costs by 100%, or at least cutting down on your utility expenses, your energy expenses by 100%. So again, I think 100% is definitely more than 70, 80%. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not necessarily buying like all of that. Again, the secrecy order is a big thing. I think let me finish off the video and then I'll give you my kind of final thoughts on the secrecy order and how that's applied today. Because I kind of see this stuff all the time as a patent attorney, and I kind of tell you how it's applied.
A lot of stories for you. Just go watch a documentary. So Tom Ogle in 1970s, Tom Ogle accidentally created an engine that ran on its own fumes using a modified lawnmower. What? In April 1977, he drove the car 205 miles on just 2 gallons of gas. Engineers found no hidden fuel reserves in the car, confirming the technology's effectiveness. Ogle's invention attracted significant attention, including a $25 million buyout.
Nice,
you know, from who? Ready for this? From Shell Oil Company, which he declined to prevent the technology from being suppressed. How weird is that? Despite securing a patent and investor support, Ogle faced legal troubles from the SEC and the IRS and personal challenges, including his wife leaving him. Ogle was shot in 1978, but survived. However, later he died under suspicious circumstances involving painkillers and alcohol, which was ruled an accidental overdose. His death was speculated by some to be a cover-up, and his revolutionary invention was largely forgotten. This next one, I like his name a lot. I had a friend named Little Sparky, but here we go. Floyd Sweet, Sparky. 1980s, Sparky developed a machine capable of converting 0.3 milliwatts into 224,000 watts of continuous on-demand power without limitations on attached equipment. He filed a patent for his invention soon after a well-dressed man approached Sparky at a grocery store, showing him a photograph taken secretly of him and his wife at home, threatening him to seize his research. Now imagine you're at a market, you're at a gas station, guy comes and shows you this, grocery store. What are you going to be doing? Wait a minute, who are you guys? Can't tell you. Here's you and your wife. What? Yes, you got to stop what you're doing with this Connect app. It's revolutionizing the industry. Cannot do that. This is freaking people out. Just because of a QR code, I can download the app.
I wonder if he has
getting answers to the questions now.
Minek.
You can do it, by the way, if you download the app on the Minek QR code right here. Let me get back to the story here with you. So he walked me, he tells Floyd Sweet Sparky, all the way to my building, telling me what was the incident to the FBI, harassment, telephone calls, and death threats from strangers. He said there were people calling at all hours.
Skip that.
Came in from all parts, eventually burglarized, resulting in theft of his notes. Later.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty much it, and I guess maybe some final points. So typically, the way the Secrecy Order Act, how that happens, again, obviously, if you're filing a patent here in the U.S., and this is not a U.S. thing, all countries have this. Whether you're in India, whether you're in China, whether you are in Germany or a country in Europe, all countries have some form of the Secrecy Act where if you're filing something, and again, like you said, whether national economy or some type of security measure, where if you're kind of creating a bomb and you're filing a patent on it, the government is going to look at that, and to the extent that it deals with national security or national economy, they're going to have that secret, or they're not going to publish it. Typically, when you file a patent application, especially in these days, it's published in a year and a half or 18 months. But to the extent that it is dealing with some type of national economy or national security, they won't publish it. They'll keep it secret and kind of deal with it at that point. Now, I'm not saying that the government is not kind of dealing with some stuff that can kind of really change things and kind of dealing with it in secret. But again, as he talked about with Tesla and some of those other guys, you still have to get funding for it. You have to get funding, you have to get R&D, and to the extent that, I guess, and again, really the society has to be ready for that. Just think, you just bought your brand new Beamer, and now somebody talking about a gasoline or a vehicle that runs off water. You have to buy a whole new vehicle at that point. Maybe you buy a new vehicle because you are kind of running off water and it's free. But again, this stuff has to be tested. And just because the headline is say vehicle runs off water doesn't necessarily mean that it's fine-tuned, that it works. Hey, Toyota has a water engine that runs off water that kind of essentially breaks down water into hydrogen and oxygen, and kind of based on that reaction, it kind of provides energy that allows the vehicle to go. But again, it's still going through the works, and the government has to came for Toyota, or kind of had those patents in secrecy. So I'm not necessarily saying I don't buy this whole government shutting down and kind of protecting all these patents, but I would say that I think a lot of them are more so dealing with national security when you're talking about bombs and things that give the U.S. a military advantage over other countries. Again, just think, if the U.S. had something that can have a tank that runs off water or runs off air, they would definitely deploy that in actual battle to give them a leg up. But we haven't seen it. I'm sure that people who are in the Army still, who are on the front line driving and stuff, they haven't come back talking about, yeah, the U.S. has some type of tanker or a locomotive that runs off air, runs off water. I'm not saying that I don't believe it, but I'm saying that I'm very hesitant. And again, a secrecy order allows the government to kind of restrict it. And I would imagine that it's a number of patents that have been filed that they have kind of kept under secrecy. But I would imagine that a lot of those patents are for military application. And again, because to the extent that it's something that the headline saying, hey, this person created something that runs off air, runs off water, runs off the earth minerals, you still have to fine tune that stuff, and society has to be ready. It's a lot of stuff that has to kind of go right for that technology to kind of hit the market. And again, I'm not saying that the government is not doing nothing shady, or businesses are not doing anything shady to kind of whack people off people, but I think it makes for good TV, it makes for a good doc, but I think that the frequency of which is happening is not necessarily a bit as much as people will want to see, make it seem. And then again, another thing, as I talked about before, a patent, you don't have to file a patent now. As a patent attorney, I must say, anytime you created something that is your ideal, is your work product, is your proprietary workings, I always say file a patent application on it. But to the extent that you feel like the government is out to get you or some business is out to get you, you don't necessarily have to file a patent on it. You can continue to work on it and kind of use it yourself or just sell it without filing a patent. Now, if patent allows you to stop others from selling it and using it and making it, but to the extent that you think that filing a patent is going to get the government on, you on the government radar, you on these different businesses radar, you don't necessarily have to file a patent application on that, which is, I guess I'm saying that it kind of refutes this whole thing of people just filing patent applications or hesitant to file patent applications, but still filing them. It's like, hey, if you think the government's going to be on, don't file it. Just kind of develop it and go from there. So, like I said, as a patent attorney, I always recommend you to file a patent application, but it's not necessarily something that you have to do to, I guess, kind of sell the product or try to bring it to market. And what's the last thing what's the last thing I have for you guys? Secrecy order, don't have to have a patent. Patent don't mean to, and again, the patent doesn't, just because you have a patent, that doesn't mean that the product, the technology is a given, is going to work perfectly. Again, people do this all the time where they do R&D, and as they're doing R&D, they're figuring out different things. They're filing for patents on different things, but the stuff never comes out or it never makes it to commercial. And that's because it just was inefficient. It was ineffective. It didn't work as well as they thought it was going to work. And I would imagine that a lot of these patents or technologies that were filed ultimately just didn't work the way that they were thought they were going to work or meant to work. And as a result, they got abandoned or they just kind of didn't come to light in a way that I guess the inventors thought that they would. So let me know if you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Shouts out to PBD for this video. Again, as a patent attorney, I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts because anytime somebody's talking about patents, hey, my ears perk up. So leave your comments, leave your thoughts in the comment section on whether or not you're kind of closer aligned with, hey, yeah, the government is out to get people and they're, secrecy order on the patents, whacking people off and kind of, trying to threaten people over kind of patents on market disruptors. Or if you think, okay, yeah, I get it, the government is probably capable of it, but it's not happening as much as maybe a documentary or or just kind of as much as people may think that happens. Again, I'm one of those people that I think, hey, yeah, this stuff can happen, and obviously we know what the government is capable of as far as that goes. But again, I just don't think it happens as much as people may think. Again, definitely to the extent that you have something, kind of put it out there, get it protected, start a business around it, and hopefully it becomes value one day. You can make a lot of money and get your just due off of it without having to worry about the government. But again, just understand if you have something that's a market disruptor, it may be too much for the society as a whole to kind of, adopt it per se, because it may be too early, and that happens all the time. But I wouldn't kind of conflate that with the government being out to get you. It's just, okay, you have something that, hey, it's a good idea. Look at the inventor of Bop said I interviewed him about a year or so ago. He said something that always stuck with me. He said your ideal has to be right. That means you have to have a relationship, you have to have ideal, you have to have the timing, you have to have the execution. And again, I want to circle or emphasize the timing part of it, because if the timing is not right because it's too soon or it's too late, that means that it's a potential that your ideal don't take off as if the timing was right. Again, Nikola Tesla had a lot of ideas and patents and things like that on electric vehicles back in the 1900s, but people are still just getting used to gas vehicles at scale or gas engines at scale. So that just didn't take off. That doesn't mean that the government's trying to kind of whack him because he was doing something that was a market disruptor. Again, it's, I guess, time now. Society deemed it as time now in the 21st century or 22nd century, whatever century we're in at this point. And as a result of that, it's kind of taken off more so than it did in the 1900s. So that doesn't mean that again, the government was trying to whack them or keep it under secrecy. It just means that society thought it was time now. So kind of keep that in mind. Let me know your thoughts in the background. Shouts out to PBD for this video, and catch you guys later. Peace.